Click the links for Odysee, Bit Chute, join the Discord or support channel coffee or through crypto, the other means. He says here, Dave Chappelle says he's open to discussing his new special with the BLT community, but will not be. Here's the thing, there's no point. That's absolutely pointless because who represents the BLT community? There's a few million people, there's not one single group that represents the BLT community. There are little subgroups and subfactions. There's no point in meeting with anyone. There's no point in meeting with any group of the BLT community or any POC community or any religious community because you're not meeting with a representative of a group. You're only meeting with that group, and really, you're only meeting with the individuals you're meeting with. They don't even represent the greater group, so there's no point. It's like, say you come to some satisfaction in accord with that group, some resolution. It doesn't mean anything. It's meaningless because the greater groups, oh, well, they didn't go far enough. He should really give money. It's like, oh, they didn't give enough. It never ends. There's no point in in meeting with anyone. It's like even Dave Chappelle, who's been a comedian, you think like he's on top of the culture war. I don't know how on top of the culture war he is, because people who are on top of the culture war are people who are in the culture war. And even people who are around the culture war aren't necessarily in it as much as they think they are. Anyway, so building, this kind of shows the necessity of building, like, what was it, the Second Life or some kind of video game that came out like 20 years ago? Building the second economy, the parallel life. For people who just don't want to be slaves to these globalist freaking cat lady weirdos, where every single word you utter will be used against you as a weapon of war, and they'll never move on. This is like the worst of, like, just PMSing cat ladies. It's just, you take the worst energy on earth, and you give them a cell phone and a box of wine, and just tell them to be as bitchy as possible. It's like, oh, that's Twitter. Where the country isn't ruled by a dozen CEOs of big tech, the payment processors, and the banks. It's a funny shot heard around the world where it's coming from Dave Chappelle getting attacked by the BLT people. If big tech, the banks, and media control the narratives, and we can't even crowdfund to start something for us because the payment processors just wouldn't allow it, and Merrick Garland, a.k.a. Rat Fink the Garfinkel, will send the FBI and helicopters to shut it down, and if you don't know what that's in reference to, you can search that online. Heaven forbid a school board not want their daughters struggle snuggled or be taught that their students are guilty for things they didn't do. Thanks, Garland. Then essentially it's a set of conditions where we need to start a country within a country, a tribe separate, where we may enjoy life without CNN or Chase Bank or Bank of America sending a hate mob after us, where you're free to publish whatever views you want, and if someone didn't like them, they could just ignore them or offer a rebuttal. A free speech America, an adult America, where angry, lonely cat ladies on Twitter weren't taken seriously. Right now, Gab and Gab TV are leading the way with this concept. Andrew Torba is some hardcore Christian dude who's a free speech guy. It is the freest part of the internet, and it's not allowed on the app stores. And anything not allowed on the app store is a good sign. If a venue hosts a blacklisted performer, Twitter will whip up a lynch mob. Now, the thing is, 90% of them don't know what they're outraged about. They're just parroting something that they have heard. They will destroy life without a second thought. Here's an example. A POC guy attacked a woman on the subway the other day, and nobody did anything. Well, they filmed it. They didn't even pepper spray the guy, because everyone has worked out the calculus in their heads. Even if you're in the right, you'll still get doxxed, fired, and probably evicted, and maybe your banks will cancel your accounts. Right now, there is a narrative set by social media and the useful idiots. You cannot fight a mob. I mean, a digital mob or a mob in real life. Say after the guy hit her, you got some big guy came up behind him and he put him in a carotid neck restraint, a perfect chokehold. The crowd on the subway would pull the guy off of him. You can't fight a mob of low IQ people. The only thing you can do is escape from them. A girl got struggle snuggled by a pox on a train. People just filmed it. Because, if you go and pepper spray the guy, you're still going to get doxxed and death threats. That's what living in cities does to people. It turns them into fearful rats. You saw what happened to Nick Sandmann. Twitter blue check marks called for his death because he simply stood there silently while an insane alcoholic assaulted him. CNN flat out lied. And to be fair, they did settle a $250 million defamation case. So say this white lady on the train unloads a bottle of pepper spray in the guy's face. Well, you're on a tight space of a subway. That means basically everyone is going to catch that overflow of the spray. And then the narrative is, well, she excessively defended herself. You can't win in a court of public opinion where the average IQ of Twitter is literally about 90 or less. Right now, we live in this public surveillance society where everything is on video and subject to scrutiny by the dumbest people on earth, people who use Twitter. Most comedians do not have Dave Chappelle's money or his black privilege to protect them, and if you think that's not real, I mean, you can see it every day. It's the only thing that's keeping Dave Chappelle from being destroyed is it's the BLT versus a POC, and the left wing is generally confused. So they've got to play it safe, which is not what a comic coming up wants to do. Mistakes are not allowed anymore because everything is clipped out with a cell phone and circulated on social media. The problem is humans are not perfect, and expecting perfection is causing people to just freeze up. Every day, more and more things are claimed to be politically incorrect and put off limits. The funny thing, sort of funny, I don't know, like neuro-fiddling funny, is that this is all coming from the left. It's basically saying multiculturalism is an abject failure, which of course it is. But they keep pushing it when clearly different tribes hate each other and should absolutely avoid each other. If you have to be cautious around each individual group so as not to offend them, then something is logically going to offend everyone, and you literally can't do anything. If you got a crowd of an audience at his stand-up, it's like, well, there's probably a dozen classes of people who he hit on. Well, they all have feelings, and they all don't want to be offended. So if you cross them off the list, you have a guy who stands up and is just silent. Is that what the mainstream comedy is going to be post-2020 BLM riots? It's looking like that. Otherwise, you're going to have some seriously underground comedy clubs, which sounds awesome. The thing is, tolerance is a two-way street. A society must tolerate diversity of thought, or you're going to have endless conflict, which is what we see here. Joe Rogan wants to try some alternative treatments, and the dinosaur media makes it their job to destroy him. What seems a little bit weird to the rest of us who think the media is controlled by the reptilians and Don Lemon is a lizard person, he is. In the old days, things blew over. We moved on. But now with cell phones and social media hate mobs, we never get to move on, which is why you never apologize to SJWs. It's seen as weakness. It's an admission of fault. Always tell them to suck a bag of dicks. In this case, they might take that as an offer. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys all next episode.